Yeah.
So welcome, welcome, welcome to this conversation with Peru audience. I think this is the first time that you connect with the mothers and fathers, parents in Peru. We have a lot of people here in Peru that belong to the community of autistic people. And as they visit Harmonic Egg, I always give them your book.
Thank you.
I'm sharing your book as much as I can. I think the first person I shared the book with was Adriana.
Yes.
And she loved it. So I think you gave us a very different and very fresh perspective and view of what autism is. And I would like just to share all of your insights, all of your perspective, all of your knowledge, all of your experience. So that is why we have some questions for you.
Okay.
Questions from different parents that come here for sessions and are asking about also about the type of therapy that we use and how this can help them. But for our conversation today, I think it is important to share your vision about autism and how you can help our parents here in Peru. So the first question I have is, what is your description for people with autism? I mean, like,
yes, how do I see them, or how do I describe them?
Yes.
Yes. So my vantage point is unique in that I really feel that those that show up with the diagnosis of autism simply have a bit of a vibrational mismatch between who they are as an essence and who they are in a body. Yeah. So one of the things that makes it so challenging for autistic children to fully be here is because the vibrational frequency of the body is much more dense than who they actually are in the big scope of things. And a lot of these kids are, through my lens anyway, have not been here, have not incarnated here on planet Earth in a really, really long time. So if they've been here before at all, it's been a very long time ago. And the last time they were here, we were in much lighter bodies, right? The body didn't have this level of density. So it becomes really challenging. And for those who don't come here very often, only when it's time to bring new information and it's time to evolve human consciousness, it can be really challenging to show up here with all the information that they have access to, but not be able to speak it, not be able to convey that information to the people around them, because the people around them, the vibration is lower than where they are. So I also see this right now as a really interesting place in human evolution, because it's really the first time that parents have been in a completely different vibrational frequency than their children. So it makes it really challenging for the parents too, right? To be able to understand what that child wants or needs, or how to connect or communicate with them, because they're in such different spaces.
Interesting. Adriana, do you want to make your question right now?
La podría hacer en español, o sea que en inglés va a ser un poco difícil, ¿no? Tú de repente la puedes... ¿no?
Yo la traduzco.
Sí. Bueno, yo tengo un hijo con autismo, él tiene 8 años, se llama Galo, y de hecho tenía una manera de ver el autismo yo cuando él era muy chico, y ahora que tiene 8 tengo otra manera de verlo, ¿no? Si bien hoy en día yo lo abrazo, o sea, abrazo el autismo, y entiendo que vienen a este mundo para obviamente sacar, como tú dices, cosas de nosotros que tenemos que mejorar y tal. Es un aprendizaje, sin duda, ¿no? Eso es demasiado retador para que no aprendamos nada de ello.
Déjame traducir.
Okay.
So she has Galo. He's 8 years old. and he's in the spectrum of autism, and she used to see autism in a very, let's say, 3D standard way before, and now she sees it in a very different way. And she's now embracing the fact that she has Gallo with autism. She's learning to live with it, but it's still a challenge sometimes.
Absolutely.
¿Qué más?
Entonces, ¿cómo le dices? O sea, porque yo entiendo que es todo un reto, pero y entiendo por qué le toca a algunas, o sea, por qué me toca a mí, o sea, por qué me tocó a mí, porque yo obviamente tengo una misión, ¿no? Y ayudo a la gente a aceptarlo también. Hay mucha gente que es negada con el tema y sufre porque yo y tal. Ya, yo no lo veo de esa manera. Sin embargo, ¿por qué cada vez hay más? O sea, ¿por qué cada vez, o sea, cuál es la razón científica o no científica, o de repente es su razón, la que ella cree que es porque si antes o se veía muy poco o no estaban diagnosticados, hoy en día 1 de cada 3 niños, creo que es 1 de cada 4, es autista?
Sí.
¿Qué tanto tenemos todos que aprender? Yo creo que va más allá, yo creo que es un tema genético, un tema de contaminación, o sea, ¿qué cosa cree ella que es? O sea, más allá de la misión que tiene cada padre con un niño con autismo o cada autista de venir a este mundo a arreglar situaciones, conductas, ¿no? Evolucionar. ¿Qué puede ser? ¿Cuál es la razón?
Okay, so she says that she understands that she has that Gallo came to her because, I mean, it's part of her own evolution and her process, of course. And she's she's somebody that advocates a lot for autism in Peru. And she knows that they have a special role for also for humanity. But she's also observing, and we know that there's more and more of these type of kids coming to the world. And sometimes there is a kind of a medical explanation related to environment, people there's contamination, there's, toxins, there's vaccines, there's a lot of theories around why we have kids with autism. So she wants to understand a little bit of why so many kids are coming right now to the world with this condition.
Yeah, right. So through my lens anyway, there's all depending on who you speak to, obviously you're going to get different responses to that question. And it is true that some kinds of physical toxins are very challenging to this population. Some types of environmental toxins, some types of emotional toxins, human emotional toxins can be challenging for this population too. But what I see is all of these children who are coming in at a much higher frequency so that they can shift collective human consciousness, so that they can actually, and I don't know how much you actually want me to say here. Let's see. Let me say this, and I'll say what I say in one of my classes, okay? So in 1986, there was something called a harmonic convergence. And the harmonic convergence was an astrological kind of configuration, right? Well, at that time, collective humanity had already kind of decided that we could no longer function in this kind of very patriarchal kind of reality. Consciously or unconsciously, humanity as a whole was saying, we can't do this the way we've done it before. So the harmonic convergence happened, and the souls that were going to come in that were ultimately going to get diagnosed with autism started flooding in. Yeah, they used that opening in that portal to come in and answer that call.
Mhm.
So back in 1986, it was like 1 in 10,000 kids on the spectrum, right? But at that time, the individuals that were coming in were mostly male, right? There were more males than there were females.
Mhm.
And so now we have all of these males coming in, these male children being born, who are very intuitive, very connected to other worlds, other realities. They really don't want to have anything to do whatsoever with the old patriarchal kind of domain and reality, right?
Mhm.
And so those first kids started coming in primarily, some before, but mainly in that time frame. And then by the mid 1990s, what I heard from the kids themselves is some of the kids started getting stuck. And when I asked, what does that mean? What does it mean that you get stuck? And one little boy in particular told me through telepathy, he told me, go to the American Medical Association journal for 1995 and see what it says.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know how this was in Peru, but in 1995 in the US, that was the year that the American Medical Association said, they justified going from 12 vaccines between 0 and 5 to 36. So they tripled it.
Mm.
So I went back to him and I said, is part of the reason why you're getting stuck or having a hard time coming in because of these vaccines, right? And in his case, he said, yes, there are other toxins as well. But to answer your question about why so many kids are coming,
Mhm.
that 1986 opened the floodgates for souls to come in that were holding this different, I call it different information fields. They hold different fields of information. But once that floodgate opened, you're not going to close that floodgate. So
Mhm.
more and more kids are going to be coming in. And often more and more kids are coming in because they're forcing us. Think about everything that's changed because we have more and more of these kids. You know, we have a very different reality around doctors, you know, or doctors. We don't blanketly trust doctors like we used to, right?
Mhm.
Just because of these kids. We've looked at vaccines, we've looked at education, medicine. We look at all of it now, where
Mhm.
we never would have looked at it if this population hadn't shown up,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So just by them being here in mass, they're really forcing so many different systems that quite frankly don't work for anybody. Diet, all of it, you know, medicine, all of it. Where they're forcing us to look at all of these systems that we would never have looked at if they weren't all here.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
So
they're changing the domain of many, many different facets of human existence.
exactly. So now we are questioning things, the status quo of everything, and we're looking for different ways, for different types of medicine, for different types of food, for different types of environment, for
Yeah.
different types of education. So they are leading us to go and do our homework and find new ways of living.
Well,
Actually.
absolutely. And what better way to do that than through a mother and a child? Because, you know, a mother will do things for their child that they won't do for themselves and they won't do for others. So,
Mhm.
and especially when you have a nonverbal child, you know, what the vaccines and toxicity and all kinds of that kind of energy, that more negative energy, you might say, it might have taken away these kids' capacity to fully communicate who they were.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, you have parents everywhere who are now attempting to make these heart-to-heart connections. They're attempting to, you know, things like telepathy or things, you know, like spelling to communicate, any means to make that connection is happening. That's also a byproduct of so many of these kids being here. We've got more hearts opening in amazing ways than we've ever had before.
Tengo una pregunta, Amalia. Lo que pasa es que, en base a lo que está diciendo Suzy, entonces, sí sería, o sea, ella debería entonces creer, bueno, lo que puedo entender por lo que he dicho, es que entonces sí podía creer en el tema de desintoxicación de los niños de manera natural, obviamente, y en el tema de las dietas, ¿cierto? O sea, en el tema de la alimentación, lo cual es muy importante.
So yeah, I mean, what Suzy is confirming is that looking into their diets and avoiding toxins and cleaning toxins, flushing toxins out of the body is something that is something that mothers should pursue when they're facing, you know, how to help their kids.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is too, is that as we're detoxing, you might say, the body of these kids, we're learning about how important it is for our body to be sacred temples as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
do you have any recommendations, like based on your experience, maybe some ideas around food or some ideas about other therapies for kids?
You know, I'll be honest, this is depending on who the child is and what the child has come to do, that can be a little bit different for each. You know, obviously a clean diet is great. I mean, generally speaking, obviously getting heavy metals and toxins out of the body, out of the cells, is very helpful. Oxygenating the cells is very helpful. And at the end of the day, even when we do all of those kinds of, as we use all of those kinds of therapies, a lot of times a parent will think, well, if I do all that, my child is now going to look more typical or look more, you know, typically developing or something like that. It's not always the case, because these kids aren't here to be typically developing. They're here to invite us to much more. And we can speak a little bit about that, but one of the things that I just started to offer was a 6-month mentorship for families, where I'm just taking 12 families and taking them through it. And this obviously is a question for everybody, but one of the main things that the kids have been saying recently is that we're all, in our more neurotypical development, we are more conditioned to be problem solvers. You know, my child has this problem and I need to solve the problem. And the kids are saying that only will work to a certain extent, that they see the world more from a, how do I want to say, it's almost, they talk about it as spherical. Like they see all the different elements and the different parts of things all at the same time. Yep. And we see it, you know, yesterday, linear, right? And the way the visual that they give me is like they're a sphere and we're a line, you know? And so we see that they have a problem, you know, a problem to be solved. And we start poking them with our line, you know, poking the sphere with a line. Some of that helps, some of it doesn't help. But what they're really inviting us to is to be more spherical, to be more total in our awareness. And so what does that look like, right? So for instance, I was talking to a mom the other day, and she was just beside herself because her child has been very ill. You know, he's been sick for a long time. And I said, okay, what is it that you really want for him? You know, what do you really want for him? And she goes, I just want health and well-being. You know, I just want him to feel healthy, feel like he's vital and alive, and I said, okay, so let's do this. Let's close our eyes for a second. Let's go into the field of totality. And in that field of totality, let's feel, let's sense, let's acknowledge his wholeness. Let's acknowledge his health and well-being, right? So as she's feeling into his health and well-being, right? Now we have a sphere and a sphere talking to each other. Yeah. And we can't force any other soul to take what we have to offer, not even our children, right? But what we can do, especially for children who are so energetically sensitive, we can create an energetic environment so that they can pull from that environment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So a mom that I work with the other day, her daughter came running in. She had gotten stung by a bee out in the yard. She was just screaming. She didn't know what was happening. And this mother and I had worked with this technique. And she said, all of a sudden, she just went into the space, like she went into herself, and she's like, I just want her to be calm. I want her to calm down so I can understand what happened, because they didn't know. So she just, like, she said, I literally just shut my eyes for a second, just 2 seconds. It was like, just calm, breathing, creating a space. All of a sudden, the little girl starts calming down, you know, shows her that she got stung by a bee. And in the meantime, hives are coming up on this, big welts are coming up on her from the bee sting. And she decided, her husband wanted to take the daughter to the hospital. She decided, no. Before we take her to the hospital, I just want to stay in this health and well-being. I just want to stay calm, health and well-being. I create that space. And then this little, 4-year-old girl literally pulled from that energy. The welts literally went down from the top of her head to her toes.
Wow.
She calmed down. She said she still had some little bumps and, and things like that, but that went away after. You see what I'm saying? So we're being invited to raise our frequency and to become the energy of what we want to offer the child. Instead of just saying, you're a problem to be fixed, and I'm going to throw everything at you I can in order to quote unquote fix you. Yeah, there's not a human being on the planet that wants to be fixed. Yeah.
Interesante. Wow, that's very powerful. Interesante, ¿no, Adriana? Muy poderoso.
Sí, muy poderoso. Y hay que comunicarlo, porque si la gente tuviera este acceso a esta información, de repente todo sería distinto, porque la gente podría elegir cómo quiero reaccionar, como si tuvieran la oportunidad de saberlo, pero como no lo saben y les han enseñado de una manera equivocada, ¿no?
Yes, so it will be so powerful that we can communicate and share this with more and more and more people. So I have I hope that at some point we can have your little book in Spanish.
It is in Spanish.
Oh, you have it in Spanish?
Yes.
Wow.
I was going to ask you that earlier. It's Urano is the publisher. It's called.
Okay.
Hay que buscarlo.
I will look it up, and I will.
Yeah, it's with Urano. Yeah, I think the title is pretty close to autism. Understanding the diagnosis of autism. But yeah, I actually have a couple copies here. I can send you copies too. If
nice. Because if it's in Spanish, that's a way to start sharing this information, Adriana. Because the book is in Spanish, but also at some point in time, we hope to have you in Peru and maybe teaching or doing some workshops here for our audience, because we do have a huge audience here that would benefit a lot from. Oh my goodness, I think it is such a magical and different approach to things, raising our vibration, becoming the whole, the circle, and you know, going up to the level that they where they need us to be
Right.
able to just to support them
Yeah.
within their language, within their energy, within their vibration. I think that's so powerful.
There's such an exchange of information too. I always tell people that I get bored very easily. It's by nature. I get bored very easily. And I've been working with these kids for 25 years now, and I'm still not bored. I'm just amazed at the information that they hold. And, you know, when you think about, you know, what Spell to Communicate and things like that came about, what, maybe 10, 12 years ago, when that really hit, it was just so amazing, because now those same kids were spelling out what was telepathically coming before that. And it was just so reassuring, because, you know, it's telepathy. You never know, you know, when you're getting it that way. But when they were actually able to confirm so much of what was said in that book, and also what has come after, it was really encouraging. So, yeah.
Yes, it's amazing. So I do have a question on color and sound.
Yeah, please.
Why is color and sound so important for these kids?
Because it's vibration.
Because it's vibration.
Because it's vibration. And to me, because these kids hang out where they hang out vibrationally, the more subtle the medicine that we offer them, the better it aligns with who they are. Yep. A lot of times we try to, and it's also the reason why things like vaccines and some of that is more dense. Even if it was a beautiful, wonderful product, it doesn't really go with their systems, because the vibration's different. So color and sound are, it's not just that there are frequencies, but that there's so much information in different colors, so much information in different scores of music and things like that. And think about it like that color and that sound are actually speaking to the different information fields within the kids. And it's true of all of us, right? Color and sound speaks to the information fields within all of us. But the kids are still so open that it penetrates, it just absorbs, it connects so much easier for them than it does for us. And they also don't live in a world where they're separate from color and sound.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. What about remote sessions?
I think they're going to work really well with this population. Gail and I've talked about this before too. It's two things. One, I know that even in the work that I offer the kids, that I almost never have that child physically in front of me. I work through their parents, or I work with them at a distance. It has no bearing whatsoever as to whether or not they're there physically or not. Again, because they're functioning from that spherical consciousness or that wholeness perspective, we can access them wherever, right? It's not linear. Yeah. One thing I will say is, the kids have always said to me, again, if we go to them, like for instance, if I do an energy session with a child, or if you all do a harmonic egg session with them, from the perspective of fixing them, it may not go quite the way you want it to go. Whereas if you go to them to be present with them, to connect with them, to be one with them, then all kinds of things can happen, because you have two spheres going together, right? The child can take what they need from that experience because it's not coming at them. It's not coming at like that line that's trying to poke them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when you set the intention for it, I would set the intention that that child that you've put the picture in the egg, that they just simply take from it whatever they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That happened to me. No, Amalia.
See.
I connect with my son in the most beautiful way when I went to the Harmonic Egg with Amalia.
Nice.
It was incredible.
Nice.
So she was sitting with
she already knows. Him. Yes.
Yeah,
so now we are.
Asked me.
Yeah.
He looked at me.
Yes.
It was very, very beautiful.
Yes. Well, and again, think about the egg as like a portal to other dimensions and other worlds and other realms. And so when the kids are actually in the egg, it can happen from a distance too, but when the kids are in the egg, it's almost like putting them in that higher dimensional chamber. It's like putting them in that space of, different dimension. I always said to Gail, I would love for you to make an egg that's big enough that we could get a bunch of people in together and, and work together in, because that would be amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so I do have some, it's beautiful to talk about vibration and everything we've discussed. I do have some very practical questions from parents.
Sure.
So we have Angela that she has a teenager now, and she's was asking about physical contact. So how important really is physical contact and interaction for them? Because it is indeed very important for parents, but sometimes it may not be as important for the kids.
Right.
And how to approach that.
Yeah. I'm just checking in with him. It's easier to just get a direct answer from him. So on the one hand, he's a teenager, right? Regardless of how he presents in the world, he's still a teenager. So he probably is seeking a little bit of autonomy anyway, because that's just developmentally appropriate at that time. So first things first, I would let him initiate physical contact. I wouldn't push it on him in any way, but I would be available for it. So that he initiates it. And then the other thing that I would say is back to this kind of sphere, coming at it from that perspective. Every single time that this mother might get a little bit concerned or a little bit worried that, her son doesn't know how much she loves him or that kind of thing, she can literally just close her eyes for a second and feel connected to him, right? Feel that energetic connection. And as she creates the space of that connection, number one, he's going to pick that up very quickly because he's a vibrational being. And if he also feels the need to be closer to her, physically connect to her, he's going to come a little bit closer as well. Yeah.
Okay.
It's also okay for, you think about how many mothers out there of teenagers, would really like a hug or would really like some kind of connection. And that teenager is going, yeah, Mom, I'm all done with you. It's like, so that's a developmentally appropriate thing. And in those moments when we feel like, oh, I really want that, we can close our eyes for a second and just feel into it and really give ourselves that vibrational sensation, that vibrational information. Her son's much more likely to run up to her and give her a big squeeze.
Like a vibrational hug.
Well, vibration or physical, because she's created the vibration for it.
Yes.
So he's
indeed.
much more likely to feel that and kind of go, I'm all in, I want to come in.
Yes.
But I love the fact that she also acknowledged that need might be more hers than it is his in this moment.
Yes. 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 Absolutely amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And we do have another one on
Yeah.
also a teenager that is getting a little bit more aggressive.
I gotta go.
Okay, thank you so much.
You.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Nice to meet you, Suzy. It was a
So
pleasure.
nice to meet you too.
I will, ojalá que se vuelva a repetir. Y cuando estés en Lima, when you come to Lima, I hope to meet you.
We'll make it
come.
happen. We'll make it happen.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. She's amazing.
No,
She's just,
beautiful.
She's just
Yes.
a sweetheart.
Yeah, lovely.
So we do have a mom that she's concerned because of aggressive, kind of really, really, really aggressive, rebellious behavior.
Okay. All right. So what we know about kids on the spectrum is that more often than not, part of their soul contract, you might say, is to break up lineage patterns, right? So most of the kids that I work with that all of a sudden start showing some form of aggression, if we go back in the lineage somewhere, there was some form of aggression somewhere in the lineage, and they're pulling that lineage, they're pulling that energy through, and they're not becoming aggressive to punish anybody or make anybody feel any sort of way. They're bringing that aggression through because they're trying to clear that out of the lineage. So one of the things that I have parents say to kids all the time is very matter-of-factly, say to him, whether she thinks he understands it fully or not, the bigness of him, the totality of him understands it. I would just say to him, wow, you're really becoming pretty aggressive. And I know that that's not you.
Okay.
I know that you're pulling that aggression from somewhere else. Right? And she can even say to him, it's not your responsibility, honey. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Yeah. Okay. Just say it to him and just see what begins to shift. Right? There are probably other elements of that we could look at at another time. But very generally speaking, it's a really good way to start because so many of these kids start becoming aggressive, not because they as an individual, as a human being are aggressive, but because they're absorbing energy from either the lineage or humanity at large is pretty aggressive right now. I've heard a lot of aggression in kids over the last 3 years. As all of the world is in some form of division, they can be pulling up that as well. But the moment that we acknowledge that that's what it is, that there is aggression, and we also acknowledge that that's not that child, that's not that individual, doesn't belong to them. It's almost like they kind of go, whew. She knows I'm not the bad one. She knows that I'm not the one I'm not doing this on purpose.
Okay.
Right? Whereas sometimes and it's natural, sometimes parents don't understand why the child is being aggressive, and they start panicking, they start getting nervous, and then they can start getting I gotta contain this kid, gotta control this kid, which can feel like aggression to the child. And so now we have aggression meeting aggression.
Okay.
Yep. And so we just want to diffuse some of that energy. Yeah. Just acknowledge.
Wow, interesting. So useful for this lady.
Oh,
She
good.
we hope we can start some sessions in the X soon with him. I think
Yeah.
that would help a lot. So I've taken a lot of your time, and
That's all
I
right.
just
I
have
enjoy it.
one more question.
Okay.
So we do have Ursula. She has a little kid. She's beautiful. Again, it is around the lessons for them, for mothers. I think we've answered that question in a way, because it's not a matter of a lessons, or it's more a matter of evolution and raising our vibration. So I think in a way we've answered that.
Well, and what I would say I understand that question, because it comes from a lot of different families, what's the lesson that I'm trying to learn here? And a lot of times it comes from that place of, oh my gosh, let me just learn it so I can get over with this, so my kid can go back to being typical or whatever. But as you were saying, it's really not about that. It's really about these children are really bringing an invitation, right? An invitation to kind of move beyond some of our own traumas and dramas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the very reason why this population is so good at pushing buttons. They know exactly where to trigger you. They know exactly what to say or not say, or do, what behaviors to act out right in front of you to make you just kind of go, it's like,
yes.
And the very reason they do that is because as they demonstrate, or as they mirror, you might say, some of the things that are hidden deep inside of us, we get the opportunity to bring that to the surface and love it, have compassion for it. And this is the part I wish most people knew, because parents are getting triggered by kids on the spectrum all the time. Professionals, everybody is getting triggered. But if we understood that the reason we're getting triggered is not to make us feel bad or make us feel wrong, but to bring up that energy so that we can then have some love and compassion for that part of ourselves.
Yeah. And heal.
And heal. That's what heals it. The love and the compassion toward that part of ourselves that has been unintegrated is the very thing that helps these kids integrate.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes. That's why we can't shift a child without shifting the parents.
Wow, that's so powerful. I totally agree.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So before we close this conversation, I have to say we do have the hope. We really hope that sometime you can come down to South America or to Peru.
I would love that.
That would be amazing. There's so many. I think you have such a different perspective that will help so many families here in Peru, and why not thinking about South America with a nice event here? So maybe the universe helps us, and we can make it happen. Yes. So before closing, what is your final message for moms and dads out there?
Well, what I say to moms and dads all the time is, I have not met a mother or a father of a child diagnosed with autism that has not chosen to kind of fast track themselves spiritually, right? I also will say to them very often that, a lot of people will make parents feel like there's something wrong with them, and that's why they had this particular child. I'd shift that just a little bit, because there has to be something really right. Yeah. It doesn't always feel comfortable. It doesn't always feel easy by any stretch. But at a soul level, if you have a child on the spectrum, you have chosen to fast track yourself spiritually, which means that there is something within you that knows you can do that.
Mhm.
And so we're just trying to get the right information out to those people so that they evolve with ease instead of punishing themselves for having children that are just amazing, quite frankly. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time and for all the information you have shared with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you,
I
thank
really
you, thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Suzy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.